This is the 90th anniversary of the Grand Prairie News. It began on November the 6th, 1908, and that's a long time ago. And these fellas have absolutely none of that wonderful documented history, but they have an idea of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm very pleased to welcome, first of all, the editor of the Grand Prairie News, Mr. Patrick Wascovich. Patrick?
How you doing, Ruthie? How are you?
We're just glad to have you back on the set
Well,
here.
thank you. I
yes,
appreciate it.
Since your last visit with us, you've passed a milestone here and have gotten into a new birthday, and you've brought two wonderful guests with you, and we're going to talk to you all about the Grand Prairie News. Not necessarily all of those 90 years, but we want to just fill in the good parts right in between. Is that all right with you?
That's all right by me.
Mr. Brent Wynn?
Hi.
Photographer of the world for the Grand Prairie News, a very excellent photographer that not only gets to photograph Grand Prairie, but he gets all around into the Metroplex, does good things for you, doesn't he? Yeah, we're going to talk with him in a few minutes about that. And Randy Jennings, a long-time wonderful director of sports. We're so glad to welcome you to this set. And
it's nice to be here.
How does it feel to be back home, Randy, in this studio, when you were here in this studio 10 or 15 years ago in that little bitty Matchbox one that we had
This
there?
is a little bit roomier. It's nice, Ruthie.
Yes.
It really is.
You know, we've grown, haven't we? Isn't that wonderful?
It just shows Grand Prairie's progress, I guess. I don't know.
Yes, that's it. All right, we're going to get back with you in a few minutes, but let's begin with Mr. Patrick. Patrick, what do you think about all of the things that are going on with the 90th anniversary, and that there are those of us in Grand Prairie that just need to celebrate?
Well, that's the main thing that comes to mind. Is it's kind of overwhelming that you'd think that a newspaper has been in operation for 90 years, but we're used to reporting the news, not being the news, so it kind of is uncomfortable, and at the same time we're really thankful to the community for even noting that the newspaper has been around for 90 years. We hope that we're a part of the community. You certainly have made us feel that we're a part of the community, and we're just really excited about the whole thing next week.
November the 6th was the real birthday. Did y'all celebrate out at the paper, or did you work like mad?
We just worked. It was another work day.
Just another work day. And if I'd been there, we'd had to have done some kind of a celebration that day.
Well, wherever you are is a party, so
yes,
it's understood.
that's it. And we are going to have a party for you. Have you gotten notice that the city of Grand Prairie, the mayor's going to be there? It's going to be fun, and on the 17th, now I want you to mark this on your calendar, the 17th of November, we're getting together from 4 to 6 at the Woman's Building in Turner Park, and we're going to have a party, a reception for you that day. You think you're going to get to be there?
I am going to make sure everybody's there.
All right.
We're really excited about it. Hopefully some of our bosses, we're part of BELO now.
All right.
Not just a subsidiary of BELO, but a division. So we're really excited about it and look forward to it.
Mr. Ross Simpson was the first editor. Wouldn't it have been exciting if you could have been the first editor, or go back and be a fly on the wall and see what Mr. Simpson had to do when he published that first little newspaper?
You mentioned that before we went on the air, and to me it's amazing, as small as you think a community like Grand Prairie would have been in 1908.
Yes.
These have to be men of vision, because you don't see newspapers starting up anymore. It really has to be a strong growth community, and they recognized that 90 years ago.
Yes, it's wonderful. And we need to get a little bit about you personally. How long have you been with the Grand Prairie News, and what other of the newspapers of BELO have you been with? And give us a little data on that, please.
I've been with Grand Prairie a little over 2 years. Before that, I was up in Garland for about a year as the news editor. I had taken a break from newspapering and gone into magazine work before that. And then prior to that, I had been again with this newspaper group as a sports editor of Arlington for 8 years. Prior to that, I was out in West Texas in San Angelo for 8 years at the Standard Times, which is a Hart Hanks paper.
And you are not a native Texan by your accent. Tell us where you hail from, Patrick.
Well, the timing of this show is kind of poor. I could brag on my alma mater until this weekend. I'm a graduate of Ohio State.
I see.
And I guess for all the Aggies out there now, they're rated above us because we went tumbling in the polls. But I graduated Ohio State in 1979.
And came to Texas what year?
1979, right after college.
Right after college. Migrated to the South. And what did you think about coming to this part of the United States after Ohio and all of the snows and the difference in the two climates?
Well, actually, I came down just prior to football season in '79, and I left. It was maybe about 40 degrees up in Ohio, and I got off the plane, and it was about 90. So right off the bat, I really loved the climate, and if anyone knows West Texas, you know the people out there. I mean, they're just great people.
Great people.
Very friendly.
Lots of wind.
Lots of wind, but you don't mind that with the personality of the people out there. And, you know, of course you're homesick at times, but I don't think we'll ever leave because really Texas is now the home.
How about Grand Prairie?
Grand Prairie is a great community. You know, again, like we were saying, it's growing in leaps and bounds. One of the first things I did when I was editor, we went through Leadership Grand Prairie, which is a year-long. But you know, the facts behind Grand Prairie are amazing. How much undeveloped land there still is. It's such a north-south city. The south end is a growth community in and of itself. But when you think of Westchester, that's maybe the midpoint of Grand Prairie because we go south of Joe Pool Lake even. So it's an amazing city.
We're going to get back with you in a few minutes and let you show and tell some of this good stuff you have on the table, but we need to get to Brent just a little bit. Mr. Brent Wynn, would you look out into your camera and tell us a little bit about the real Brent Wynn, how long you've been with the paper, and a little bit about yourself as a commercial photographer? A professional photographer.
I've been with the paper about going on, well, in Grand Prairie, I've been here about 5 years. I started with the Richardson paper and was there just a little less than 2 years. So, and then before that, I've been freelancing for all the papers that were here, the Mid-Cities News, Arlington News, when they were still active, and just have really enjoyed it. And I enjoy Grand Prairie because as a photographer, there's so many different things to see as far as people and faces and events and things. It's something that's nice to come to work to each day.
What would you say was in the top 3 photographs that you've ever taken, the most exciting 3? Let's show and tell. Come on, let's show and tell.
Yes, this one was probably the most exciting when the house exploded from the natural gas leak. What was the address? Indian Hills.
Indian Hills area.
Yeah, in the Indian Hills home. I was one of the first one of the first photographers there at the site, and it was just, I had covered tornadoes when I worked in Amarillo at the paper up there, and this looked exactly like it, like one had just come down and touched that one house and strewn debris all over the neighborhood. It was fascinating and horrific at the same time.
Devastating sight, wasn't it?
Very devastating.
All right. Your second?
Well, I don't know, top 3. It's always hard to say for me because I look to each picture as carrying its own weight. Some other stories we've done, one that touched me, we were looking at it just the other day, was the story we did on the little girl named Jasmine that was just a couple of years old, and she doesn't have arms or legs, and she's making it just like any other baby would, and just has, you know, all the emotions of a regular child, and then, you know, has the disability of no arms or legs.
Putting that into a pictorial sequence is something, isn't it?
It's something that is, you want to take the pictures, and then it just really tugs at your heartstrings at the same time. So it's fun, and then it hurts you as well.
Yes. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I think I am.
You ought to continue being a photographer forever.
Right, I do. I want to be.
You love the work?
I enjoy taking pictures of anything.
And you have Barbara, your wife, as your aide and abettor?
Yeah, she keeps the books and says,
Go
be here at 2
these
o'clock, eat dinner now, and go to sleep, you know, so
Yes.
I'm kept in line pretty good.
Oh, that is wonderful. Would you recommend that to young people that may be watching our show to get into that part of the...
I think that if you enjoy photography or any kind of visual image making, to get in it and stay in it as much as you can. It'll be tough at first, but the longer that you stick with it, the better you're going to do.
As a person that's interested in history, each photograph that you take and each story that you write becomes a part of the history, not only of our city, but of our of all of the people that live here. And I think it's just wonderful, the documenting that you do that preserves history for us here. And I can go back to the archives in the library and see all of the work that those that have gone before you. And we're going to get, all of those exes are coming together for that big celebration we're going to have. We'll get back with you if we have time, if we don't run out of time. But we got to talk with Randy here. Randy Jennings, sports person. Tell us a little bit about the real Randy. How long you've been with the paper, anything about your family or anything you'd like to say.
Okay, well, I grew up in Grand Prairie and went to Grand Prairie High School and graduated in 1971. Went to UTA. I've worked with the paper for 23 years. It's all been on sports, and I guess I've really enjoyed it. I mean, it's just fun. That's the reason I do it, you know.
And of all of the columns that you've written, which a multitude of columns, even when we were a daily newspaper,
Right.
and then when we went to the Grand Prairie News as we know it today, what are the 3 most exciting columns that you've ever
I'm
done?
afraid you're going to ask me that. You know, it's really hard to put 23 years in.
Yes.
And not, you know, the thing that stands out to me is the people I've dealt with. That's the part that I really cherish the most. I mean, a game, there's been exciting games and things like that, but it's the coaches, the players that you get to know and watch over the course of a season.
Yeah.
Those are the things that really stand out more than just a ball game, I think. It's
Every year is a special year?
Oh yeah, I mean, I could think of even seasons when teams aren't winning. It's still fun to do the job. It's still fun to be around the guys, and you know, I guess seeing good things happen to people you like. I think that's the reason I really like to get into it. I mean, it's really nice to see everything kind of come together, and you know, I enjoy that.
Yes. Do you have any special athletes that you have followed over the years that maybe grew up under your tutorage, so to speak?
We've had some really good ones come out of Grand Prairie, and you know, I could mention many names. Where I'm at now, Kerry Wood played the senior year at Grand Prairie High School, and he was National League Rookie of the Year yesterday, Monday.
Yes.
That's pretty neat. Covering that team was a lot of fun, but you know, I hate to even single out one because there's been so many in 23 years that just went on and just did phenomenal things on the football field, on the baseball field, just whatever the sport. You know, we've really been blessed in Grand Prairie. We've had some tremendous athletes come through here.
And the Gopher Bowl?
Oh, that's every time you go in there, it's a bit of history for me. See, I grew up going to high school games there, and I can remember when that place was full every Friday night. You know.
Yes.
And, it's a little different now. Another game was special, come to think of that, was last year when South Grand Prairie played their playoff game there, and it was full that night when they played Abilene Cooper. That was kind of brought back old memories of days when you know, I was 10, 11 years old going to games.
When you went to play Wichita Falls and Grand Prairie?
Those were some bitter rivalries. Wichita Falls was like the state champion every year, and when Grand Prairie had to play them, it was usually curtains at the end of the season. I mean, it was hard to beat those guys. That was like the Plano of the 50s and 60s, Wichita Falls.
Oh, yes. Well, there's so many things. You didn't bring a paper to show and tell your favorite column or anything?
You know, I should have, I guess. I just so many that I've done over the years, I just don't know if I have a favorite. I guess, you know, they just really, to me, they all...
They're all important, aren't they?
They're all important at the time, and then after you write them, you know, you just go to the next thing. You don't really linger on any one or two.
Would you recommend your career to a young person that might be watching our show?
I think as far as they would really have to like sports, and they would have to be, I think, fairly dedicated in what they want to do. I mean, it's not something that's just a 9-to-5 type job. It's something you gotta really want to do, and you gotta really sacrifice some to do the job right. But I think if they like sports and they want to give it a try, I guess there's chances for it in the field.
All right. We have about a half a minute to show and tell all this good stuff. Come on, let's show and tell. What is the most important thing that you have here, Mr. Patrick, that
The most important thing.
that would be meaningful to our viewing audience and to us and for the history of your newspaper?
Well, I think, just picking up the paper that Brent had, this is kind of a year-end edition. And I think Randy touched on it, what community newspapers are all about. I mean, to Randy, and I think to the rest of the staff, we're going to be there whether the teams are 0-10 or 10-0. And he's the type, and I think I have a staff that are the type of personalities that, you know, yes, we want to celebrate your wins, but we're going to be there, you know, if the losses are coming too.
Yeah.
You know, the metropolitan papers, week 8 is about the first time you'll ever see them, and that's only if you're 8-0. You know, we're always going to be there. We celebrate Grand Prairie as a community because we think we're a part of it. Randy certainly is, and the rest of the staff certainly feel a part of the community.
All right, you have, this looks like a very yellowed old copy of a paper.
That looks like that.
But
that's actually our 75th anniversary edition that came out 15 years ago, and it was printed this way because it was the old type style.
Yes.
And just because I kind of like to collect them, these are the way newspapers used to be. Headlines were done with wood block type, and then body style would be with metal, and they poured lead over that to make the pages. So we've come a long way since then.
Well, that was a real project to get a paper out, wasn't it?
Because there would be a front, a newsroom that would be doing the stories, and it would go into the back shop. I don't think it was even called a composing room. And they would literally build a page.
Yes.
And you know, it was 100 pounds per page because it was all lead and metal. And I just kind of like them because, like I say, these things, to me, you were talking about being a part of history. I mean, this is a W that's pretty big. It could very well have been a headline in a newspaper.
World War
I, World War II.
Yes.
So I just think that's really interesting.
And this that you have?
Again, this is just how newspapers have changed. This is as recent as 1996. We had done some computerization. As you can see, some of the photographs were put on computer, but still the stories were sent bit by bit, cut apart and put on a page. And then it would go to a camera. And now we've gone to, I mean, basically now every page that comes out of our computer, if it's a color page, has 4 plates, which is black, blue, red, and yellow. And this would be one of them. Comes out in negative form.
In a negative.
In a negative.
No more wood and no more wood and metal.
No more wood, no more metal.
Yes.
And then when those 4 plates go on a press and they get in alignment, it would come out like that. And that's just a typical page. And a black and white page would come out with 1 negative.
With 1.
But it's called pagination. It's all on computer. We have a system that we even import our advertising. Nothing is in a composing room anymore.
I'm not so sure that's better than the wood either.
Randy is a traditionalist.
But he wants to get that sports page out first, see.
I want to get it done, but I'm not sure that's the best way still.
Well, I want to thank you all so very much. You have set the stage. You've given us an appetite for coming to your 90th birthday anniversary, which is going to be at the Woman's Building on that magic date of November the 17th. And you're going to stay on the set because we have a lady that's coming on here to do a little talking about the history of our wonderful newspaper and the things that you all have done to make history every day. We could probably do a 3-hour show, but we're going to do that the day of your party. Mr. Tovar and the students from South Grand Prairie High are going to bring cameras, and we're going to do a 2-hour documentary. And we know it's going to be fun with all of your exes that are going to be there. And if you can get Gene Abramson there, there may be a bonus in this for this party. Thank y'all very much for being here.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be right back with Shelley Moon.
Ten years ago, a Texas guitar legend kicked off an idea that has become a legend in itself. We'd like to thank Willie and the whole gang for helping create the most successful anti-litter campaign in history. And like Stevie Ray said a little over 10 years ago,
don't mess with Texas.
Continuing our spotlight on the Grand Prairie News, we're very excited to bring someone else that's under the direction of Mr. Patrick Waskovitz, and that is Shelley Moon. Shelley, wonderful to have you back on the set with us, my dear. And Patrick, how many employees do you have altogether on your staff?
Oh,
8, 6, 8?
Yeah, about 6 or 7.
6 or 7?
Yeah, it depends.
How many,
We have
how many
freelancers.
ladies?
1, 2, 3, 3.
3 ladies, okay. All right, well, I'll tell you one thing. We have one of the creams of the crop here today.
The best.
Oh, yes. Shelley, how long have you been with the paper, my dear?
About 18 months.
About 18
I was
months.
transferred over from one of the other papers in the chain.
Uh-huh. Would you like to tell us the other paper from whence you came?
I came from the Mid-Cities News, which
The Mid-
covered Hearst, Euless, and Bedford.
All right. And your particular job with the Grand Prairie News entails what?
Well, basically whatever Patrick tells me.
I see.
And I'm responsible for filling up that lifestyles page every Thursday. I have
You
to
want to
have
show
that
us the
top story.
lifestyles page?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is one that we recently did for Halloween.
All right.
And I'm responsible for getting that, making sure Brent takes the pictures, and then I write this column at the bottom called Prairie Folks, where I get to write about a bunch of nice people I meet. And I'm also the education reporter.
And education as well?
Yes.
As all of this other lifestyle wonderful things?
Yes.
And I believe you had a special event that came up recently on the second paper here. What is it like when you get a wonderful assignment like that? And tell us about that.
Well, this is Mrs. Warmack, and she was named the Senior Citizen Volunteer of the Year. There she is. And I've talked to Mrs. Warmack a lot. Her name gets in Prairie Folks a lot because she's real busy. She does everything. And someone finally had the, I guess, the smarts to nominate this woman for this award. So she won, and I got to go talk with her just for a couple hours just about herself, which is unusual because she usually talks about the library.
Yes.
So we had a really good time, and I got to know a little bit more about Betty than I used to know, and I really enjoy her. And I see her around town every now and then, and we chit-chat.
Instead of having the front page on the second section, you had the front page on the front section. How did you manage that?
She's just good.
Well, you have to do what the boss tells you, and he says, write a story, and you do.
And that one made the front page. And isn't that wonderful to get your work on the front
Yeah,
page?
it's fun because I get my stories in different parts of the paper. It's a lot of fun.
Yes. And would you trade jobs with someone else that had another assignment in the newspaper, or are you loving what you're doing?
No, I've done the police beat and I've done the city beat, and I don't want to go back and do that. I like doing this. I don't have to run out to fires and explosions like Brent was talking about, but I get to do fun things like go to elementary schools and talk to kids, and that's real fun. They always ask you the most amazing questions, and I get to meet people and just do feature type stories about them, which is much more fun than talking to people whose house has just burned down or
Yes.
different things like that.
And you have a family?
Yes, I've been married 12 years. My husband's name is Curtis, and I have a 5-year-old daughter, Christina, who just started kindergarten.
And she was the one that was at the library.
Yes, she was at the library, and she got to meet Mrs. Warmack.
Oh, that is great. And would you recommend your type of job to a young person that might be graduating from, say, high school to go on into college and start working in that direction?
Journalism is fun, and it gets in your blood a little bit. You can't do much else after you've become a writer. And I would recommend it, but I would warn them that it's hard work, and you're not really probably ever going to get rich doing it. But it's worth it because you get to do so many different things. And I tell my husband, he works on computers all day, and I say, I don't have to stay in the office nearly as much as you. I get to go roam around town and meet people and, find out things about them. And it's a lot of fun.
Yes, and to see all of the different prospective people that you have as you go around the room. You may be interviewing someone else, and then you see someone else that may be featured next week.
I went this morning to a ceremony that was honoring Native Americans, and one of the young men that I met there works for the, I think it's called the Dallas Intertribal Association.
That's it.
And he is trying to start another powwow in Grand Prairie. So I talked with him briefly, so you'll be seeing that a little farther down the line in the springtime.
That'll spur you on to another interview.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever thought about our boys and girls that do our television show here that are all are South Grand Prairie High School television class students? And yeah,
they're on the list.
Oh, they are on the list also. Oh, that is really great. Patrick, what all do you expect of a person like Shelley? Do you have different assignments, or is it just real elastic and she just picks up wherever you need her?
I'm really blessed with the staff that I have. As Shelley was saying, a lot of the assignments on a beat are givens. I mean, Gene on the police beat will have several things that he has to do.
That's Gene Abramson, that would not be here today yet.
Would not be here today. Randy's going to cover sports.
Yes.
He has some of the leeway that Shelley has. But Stephanie Sandoval on the city beat, she's going to have, if there's a council meeting, she's got to be there.
Yeah.
There's an old saying in journalism that everybody has a story to tell. Really, Shelley's job is to find those stories.
You're a detective.
Exactly.
In a matter of speaking, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's pretty amazing because a lot of times, as Shelley was saying, people don't understand how many stories are generated simply by a phone call. Simply by an observation. When Shelley's talking to one person, they go, so-and-so is doing this, so-and-so is an expert at this, so-and-so's interest is this. And it's really amazing how many things that she does. The other thing that I want to brag on her is that most of the time when she's talking to people, it's one of the biggest things in their life. I just went through in the last month, and Shelley has to generate a lot of what we call canned copy. It's not stories, it's simply things that are given to us. In the past 8 issues alone, she typed out 6 engagements, 14 weddings, 2 anniversaries, 8 births. We have an item that in every Sunday called 3 Cheers, which again is people that have maybe left Grand Prairie, gone in the military, gone to college, whatever. I was amazed because in only 4 weeks there was 55 different items in the Grand Prairie News
that she had to cover.
That was generated about people from Grand Prairie or outside of Grand Prairie that were native to Grand Prairie that she covered. Along with the 55 items were 24 photos that she had to keep track of. So a lot of the stuff that she does is very important for the nuts and bolts of a community newspaper.
We've run out of tape. We've run out of time. Shelley, you got all of the wonderful compliments from your editor. And isn't that great? And we have it on tape.
Oh, great.
And that's great.
Evidence.
Thank y'all very much, both of you all, for being here to help us celebrate the 90th. We're going to continue on celebrating it, and especially on the 17th. We're looking forward to seeing you there too, Shelley.
I will be there.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you, and would you help us end the show? It's happening in Grand Prairie, Texas.